Hello YouTube, today's going to be fun. We're looking at part 2 of our series about traditional and modern mandolin tone. Welcome to Wayne's World of Mandolin. I want to invite you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and know about all the content. If you're looking for some Skype sessions, I'm available for that. You can find a good email on me in the description. That email is also attached to my PayPal account if you want to support the channel that way. So as we get into this discussion about tone, most people have kind of a journey that they go through finding the sound that they want and being influenced by different things. I want to start with something that was had a real impact on me as a 16-year-old starting to play mandolin. Okay, that's a lore being played with an attitude that I just love about Ricky Skaggs and his playing and musicianship. At a young age, he had already experienced a lot of things musically at that point and had evolved into that player with very much an improvisational spirit in his playing. But the tone that he played on that lore, that was, to me, the perfect instrument for him to own. I didn't think about it that way at that time. I just knew that I loved what I was hearing, and I wasn't thinking of traditional or modern tone. I just liked it a lot. And I wanted to play a Gibson mandolin because he did, as well as a lot of my other heroes in the bluegrass world at that time. So the first Gibson mandolin that I owned was actually a 1980 F5L, originally owned by Dewey Farmer. Some of you guys may be familiar with him and his great mandolin playing from that era. But that sound was about as close as I could come in that 80s Gibson mandolin, which was a really great instrument. I played it on a couple of early Third Time Out projects that I was a part of. So it got me started in my recording career and the whole 9 yards. Anyway, fast forward to 1997, and I actually had saved enough money to be able to buy this mandolin, which is a 1926 Fern. Again, that edgier sound, the way I was so into that, I finally, came up with an instrument that was going to be a lot closer and helped me a lot to have that and to just be inspired by something. This mandolin makes me want to play a really bluegrass sound. Really nice grit, and it likes to be played hard and closer to the bridge. A lot of things about technique that can be done to help achieve that edgier sound, but so much of it does start with the instrument. In part 3 of this, we'll talk more about strings and technique and that kind of thing, but today more about the instrument. So as I played, and you evolve and you hear other things that you really like. And I moved on at one point to a Tucker F5 mandolin that has far more of a rounder sound, a smoother sound, if you wanted to think of it that way. And tonally, if you're playing that instrument by yourself, you could argue that it's more fun. Or if you were playing like a house concert or doing something solo, you would maybe want that rounder sound. It's almost like closer to being like a band. And sometimes I think people are trying to find a mandolin that sounds like a whole band if you go too far in that direction. But there is obviously a beauty in both of these things, and I love both of them. So I'm going to have to do an edit right here and grab a different mandolin to show you guys. Okay, so here we have I'm thinking that this is a 94 Gilchrist mandolin because the serial number starts with 94. I'm not really that up on the serial numbers from these, but this is an X-braced mandolin. And it has, again, the first instrument that I bought, trying to go for this bigger kind of sound, and I played it on the Letter to Home recording that Third Time Out made, which is completely different sound than like the grandpa's mandolin tone, what I was going for at that time. And would not have had the money. I didn't own the old Fern yet either, and definitely wouldn't have had the money for a Gilchrist. That Tucker mandolin served that purpose. It definitely had a rounder, bigger kind of sound. And if you're playing, again, just playing solo by yourself, this mandolin makes me think maybe an artsier kind of style, or stylistically, the song that we do, Erase the Miles, which is an artsier sounding ballad, like the bigger sounding note really fits that kind of music well. If in a perfect world, I would potentially change from one instrument to the other on stage if you wanted to be all in on a particular sound on a song that you were playing. The mandolin that you see me play on the channel 90% of the time, my McClanahan, sits in the middle of these two things. And you can really, instruments like that, you're much more likely to be able to nudge it in one direction or the other through the strings that you put on it, the technique that you play it with, the setup, all of that stuff can make a difference, where some mandolins are kind of a one-trick pony. There's one thing that they do, but it's really great. Anyway, if you haven't thought about this topic and the sound that you're playing, it's definitely something to get into. And mostly it's going to come from people that you're influenced by, and then the music that you're a part of. What sound is going to function well in the music that you play? So here we have these instruments today, two examples of instruments that provide those sounds. We'll move on. The next part of this, I'm going to have a couple of A models that I'll demonstrate that are in these two camps, which are much more affordable as an approach to try to get this. But hopefully, if you like both of them, at some point, it's a great idea to own an instrument that leans each way, just like a guitar player. The difference between a Telecaster and a Les Paul, or a D28 and a D18. We have these different tastes in tone. So I hope you liked part 2, and we'll move on hopefully a week out with part 3 in our series about mandolin tone.